In your mother's womb, you're perfect. Your cells regenerate instantly. Your energy is limitless. Your potential is infinite. Then you're born and the countdown begins. First decade, invincible. Second decade, unstoppable. Third decade, the first cracks appear. After that, well, that's where the real story begins. Let's start at the very beginning, not your birth, before that. In the womb, you're literally perfect. Your cells divide with precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. Your DNA is executing a flawless blueprint. No mistakes, no regrets, no limitations. Your brain forms first, billions of neurons connecting in an intricate dance that will never be this perfect again. Your heart beats before your mother even knows you exist. Your fingers form, already unique, already holding a future that could go anywhere. This is peak you. This is your highest potential. Everything after this is just a slow descent into being less perfect. Then comes birth. Your first breath, painful, shocking, bright. The world is too loud, too cold, too much. This is your first lesson in what life will be like. Uncomfortable change, but you adapt. You always adapt. That's the tragedy of aging. We can adapt to almost anything, including our own decay. Your first year is pure potential. Every sound could become a language. Every face could become a connection. Every movement could become a skill. Your brain is literally building itself based on what's around you. You're a sponge soaking up possibility. But here's what nobody tells you about that first year. It's also the beginning of loss. Every day, your brain is pruning connections it doesn't need. Every week, you're becoming more specialized, more limited, more human. By age 2, you're walking, talking, becoming someone specific. This is where the first real tragedy occurs. You start becoming one person instead of all the people you could have been. Your brain is already closing doors you don't even know exist. Ages 3 to 5, the golden years. Your pure energy, pure imagination, pure life. You can be anything. An astronaut in the morning, a doctor after lunch, a superhero before bed. Your brain doesn't know limitations yet. Your body hasn't learned to be tired. This is when you're most alive, most real, most you. Everything after this is just a series of compromises. Then comes school. This is where society starts its work, where potential starts getting channeled into practical directions, where imagination gets replaced with information, where possibility gets traded for procedure. Your first day of school, that's when the real countdown begins. You walk in with infinite potential, but the system isn't built for infinity. It's built for conformity, for practicality, for slowly turning stardust into standardized tests. Watch what happens to a child in their first week of school. Day 1, they're bursting with questions about everything. Day 5, they're learning to raise their hand, to wait their turn, to be quiet, to be normal. This is the first major death, the death of natural curiosity. By age 7, you're already different. The world isn't magical anymore. It's organized, categorized, explained. You're learning that there are right answers and wrong answers, that imagination isn't as valuable as memorization, that fitting in matters more than standing out. Ages 8 to 10, this is where the real transformation happens, where you start noticing brands instead of beauty, where you begin caring what others think, where you learn to be embarrassed, to be self-conscious, to be less. Remember when you used to dance without caring who watched? When you used to sing at full volume just because? When you used to create without wondering if it was good enough? That person starts dying around age 10. Then comes middle school. Ages 11 to 13, the killing grounds of authenticity. This is where most people learn to hide who they really are, where they start wearing masks, where they begin the lifelong practice of being what others expect instead of who they are. Watch a middle schooler try to navigate their day. Every decision is filtered through one question. What will others think? Not what do I want, not what do I love. Just how can I avoid being judged? This is the second major death, the death of authenticity. High school arrives like a sentence. 4 years of being told who to be, what to learn, how to think. But here's what makes it really tragic. You start believing it's normal, natural, necessary. Ages 14 to 18, the great narrowing, where potential gets channeled into practical paths, where dreams get downsized into realistic goals, where the infinite possibilities of childhood get reduced to college applications and career paths. Remember when you could be anything? Now you're choosing majors, picking careers, making smart choices, each choice closing 1,000 doors you'll never even know existed. This is the third major death, the death of possibility. College or work comes next. Either way, it's the same story. You're trading time for money, potential for security, dreams for practicality. Your early 20s, when society expects you to have it all figured out, to know what you want to do with the next 40 years of your life, to make decisions that will affect you forever before your brain is even fully developed. Watch what happens to most people in their 20s. They start strong, full of plans and dreams. Then reality hits. Bills, responsibilities, expectations, the slow crush of ordinary life. This is when the physical decline begins too. Not dramatically, subtly. You don't bounce back from all-nighters like you used to. Your metabolism starts slowing. Your energy isn't infinite anymore. But it's not the physical changes that hurt the most. It's the mental ones, the emotional ones, the spiritual ones. You start noticing patterns, routines, the endless cycle of wake up, work, sleep, repeat. Each day bleeding into the next until weeks become months, become years. Your late 20s, when the first real panic sets in, when you look around and realize some people your age are actually succeeding, actually living their dreams, while you're still figuring it out. This is the fourth major death, the death of potential. 30 hits like a diagnosis. Suddenly you're not young anymore. You're just adult, regular, normal, the special potential that everyone saw in you as a child. It's expected to be realized by now, or forgotten. Your early 30s bring a new kind of tired. Not physical tired, soul tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from realizing this is it. This is your life. The dreams you had, they're starting to look more like fantasies. Watch what happens to people in their 30s. They start settling for jobs they don't love, for relationships that are good enough, for lives that are comfortable but not exciting. This is when the mirror becomes an enemy, when you start noticing changes you can't undo. Grey hairs, wrinkles, the slow transformation of your body from ally to adversary. Mid-30s, when the real compromises begin, when for now becomes forever, when temporary solutions become permanent situations, when someday starts sounding more like never. This is the fifth major death, the death of dreams. Your late 30s bring a new kind of panic. Not the energetic panic of your 20s, but a quiet, desperate realization that time is running out, that the window of opportunity is closing, that some doors are closing forever. 40 arrives like a verdict. This is who you are now. This is what you've become. The person you thought you'd be. They're not coming. They're not even possible anymore. Watch what happens to people in their 40s. They start dividing their lives into before and after, before they got tired, before they got practical, before they got old. This is when your body starts betraying you in new ways. Random pains, unexplained aches, the slow deterioration of everything you took for granted. Your early 40s bring a new kind of resignation, the acceptance that some dreams will never happen, that some potential will never be realized, that some doors are not just closed, but locked forever. This is the sixth major death, the death of possibility. Mid-40s, when you start measuring your life in what's left instead of what's possible, when you start calculating how many summers you might have left, how many chances, how many moments. Watch what happens to people in their late 40s. They start living in memory instead of possibility. They talk about what they used to do, used to be, used to dream. 50 doesn't hit like a surprise. It arrives like a confirmation of all the things you're not going to be, all the lives you're not going to live, all the potential you're not going to realize. This is when your body stops negotiating and starts demanding. When health becomes a full-time job, when maintenance replaces growth. Your early 50s bring a new kind of loss, the loss of relevance. The world starts moving faster than you can adapt. Technology, culture, change, everything starts feeling foreign. This is the seventh major death, the death of currency, mid-50s, when you start becoming invisible, when the world starts looking past you instead of at you, when your opinions start mattering less, when your experience starts counting for less than someone's potential. Watch what happens to people in their late 50s. They start preparing for the end instead of planning for the future. They start thinking about retirement instead of revolution. 60 arrives like a sentence. This is the age when society officially considers you old, when senior becomes your identity, when your life starts being measured in what you were instead of what you are. This is when your body becomes a countdown clock. Every checkup brings new concerns, new medications, new limitations. Your early 60s bring a new kind of fear, not the fear of failure, the fear of ending, of running out of time, of leaving things undone. This is the eighth major death, the death of future, mid-60s, when you start losing people. Friends, family, peers. Each loss a reminder of your own mortality. Each goodbye a preview of your own. Watch what happens to people in their late 60s. they start summing up, adding their accomplishments, counting their regrets, measuring their impact. 70 arrives like a mirror, showing you everything you've become, everything you failed to become, everything you'll never become. This is when your world starts shrinking, physically, socially. Possibilities become preferences, become necessities. Your early 70s bring a new kind of loneliness, the loneliness of survival, of outliving friends, of becoming a relic. This is the 9th major death, the death of relevance. Mid-70s, when you start becoming history instead of present. When your stories start sounding like ancient history to young ears. When your experience becomes more burden than benefit. Watch what happens to people in their late 70s. They start living in memory. The past becomes more real than the present, more comfortable than the future. 80 arrives like an achievement and a curse. You've made it this far, but what's left? What's ahead except more loss, more decline, more ending? This is when your independence starts failing, when simple tasks become challenges, when dignity becomes a daily negotiation. Your early 80s bring a new kind of surrender to time, to decline, to the inevitable end of everything you are and everything you've been. This is the 10th and final death, the death of self. The rest is epilogue, a slow fade into whatever comes next, a gradual release of everything you've accumulated, everything you've been, everything you've loved. This is aging, not the gentle wisdom they show in movies, not the peaceful transition they describe in books, but a series of small deaths, each one taking something you'll never get back. From perfect potential to gradual decline, from infinite possibility to finite reality, from everything you could be to everything you weren't. This is why getting old sucks. Not because of the physical decline, not because of the loss of beauty, not because of the health issues, but because you have to watch yourself slowly become less potential, less possibility, less you, until finally you're just memory, a story others tell, a lesson about time, a warning about potential. Remember, you start perfect, you end however you end. Everything in between, that's the slow death they call aging. Subscribe for more truth about life. Because we're all dying. Some of us are just more honest about it. Some of us just see it more clearly. Some of us just feel it more deeply. This is your life. This is your decline. This is why it sucks to get old.